Thank you, Jack. My session this morning is about employees and owners and the relationship that they have. In the course of my 20 plus years of owning a successful sign shop, we cycle through almost 100 employees. I know that sounds like a big number and a lot of turnover, and it was. But we had between 20 to 30 employees for many of those years. I had a few employees stay well over 15, and some lasted as many as 20 years, and some lasted less than 15 days. Hiring has always been an imperfect activity. I tried hard to build an understanding of how we thought about employees and what motivated them and what demotivated them, because ultimately I wanted to build a more solid team. As business owners, we wear many hats. One of the hats we wear is the HR department. We are the human resources department. We are the ones making the people decisions. We are the ones who create and mold our employees into our team. We are the ones who should be setting the culture of our business. Ultimately, our business will succeed and thrive only when our team succeeds and thrives. How we see each other and how we work together is an interesting dynamic. These are the challenges we face as the HR manager and the owner of our businesses. I have observed that there are all types of personalities and traits on both the employee and owner side. We have to find that mix which makes our team great. So let's go on a little journey and take a look at some of the different personality traits that impact our team. Good employee, bad employee. You hope you only make good hires and you hope they stay. But let's face it, there are good employees and bad employees. Most all of us will experience both types in the course of owning our business. And as employees, we will experience them as teammates as well. How we deal with them impacts our business greatly. So let's start with the bad ones, the toxic employees. This is an issue I certainly encountered in my 20 plus years in my sign shop, and I have seen it in many other shops as well. These are the folks who are team destroyers. They cost us all in so many ways. When we look at some of the traits of toxic employees, we see poor job performance, people who don't work well with others. No matter how we try, they're not responsive to the coaching we tried to give them. They don't like change. They're resistant to change. They want to do it their way. They never take ownership when things go bad, or even ownership of projects to move things forward. And they're the ones who are blaming others. It's never their fault. It's always someone else. So what about these toxic employees? Easy enough. We can fire them. Just deliver the news. But wait a minute. After we identify them, why are they still there? That is the top 5 reasons we don't fire the poor performing or toxic employee. They're still working for you. We lie to ourselves. We say there's no time to hire and train a new employee. It's better to deal with the devil that we know. We already know this person. We'll live with it. That employee is such a nice person. I know their family. They're just good people. I know they're not doing the job, but they're just a nice person. I can't stand conflict. I don't want to confront an employee who's not performing. We just want to hide from conflict and avoid it at all costs. We're hoping that the performance will improve. It's going to improve. At some point in time, these people will improve. And we keep hoping that. but it never happens. A lot of times we feel guilty because, we didn't offer them good enough support for them to be successful. Reality is, they're still working for you. Let's look at it for the other ways. Why should we fire these people and move on? The cost of not firing a bad employee is huge. And ultimately, one way or another, they are going to be gone. Your finances are suffering. Your culture is being hijacked by these poor performing and poor attitude employees. The stress of it all is damaging your performance. It's pulling your focus away from where it should be onto the performance of these poor performing, toxic employees. Your customers are being affected. Employees that have poor customer service skills or bad attitudes are affecting your business and your customers. And it's unfair to everyone, even the poor performing employee. It's better for them to move on than to keep them around. And it's certainly a lot more fair to your team to get rid of those people and bring quality employees to your team. We want to have great employees. Those employees that make it a pleasure to come to work. They have wonderful traits. They infuse our companies with positive energy. They fit our culture and understand our mission. When I look at traits of a great employee, it's the attitude they have. Positive attitude is one of the most important attributes a great employee brings. They're ambitious, autonomous. They can work by themselves. They bring passion to what they do. They really feel connected to the work that they do and to our clients. They're honest. We can always understand and trust them to do the right thing. They're creative, and after all, we are in a creative industry, so we want to make sure that we have creative employees. They're reliable. They show up on time. They're dependable. They're eager. They have an eagerness about them to learn more, to do more, and to grow. They bring a positive attitude to the company. And most importantly, they're team players. My brother graduated college back in the 50s. He went to work for IBM, and he spent over 35 years there until he retired. It was his only job. After college, I worked for 4 different employers before I became an entrepreneur, and then I had 4 different businesses. Today, the average worker will have 12 different employers in their lifetime. That works out to 3 to 4 years average per employer, not counting promotions. Some will be longer, some shorter. But the reality is, that means employee turnover is a reality. Gallup's latest State of the American Workforce is a real eye-opener, to say the least. The report says that the majority of employees, 51%, are now actively searching for new jobs or watching for openings. That means half of your workforce, on average, is looking to change jobs. But here's the reality. Whether they're good employees or bad employees, at some point, employees will leave you. We live and work in a different generational era, one where the reality is employee turnover of both good and bad employees happens often, and that is very expensive to any business. So let's look at some of the ramifications of an employee leaving. In our small sign businesses, the number one thing we are immediately hit with is workload issues. Invariably, the owner must jump in and fill the void of a vacancy, him or herself, on an immediate basis. We drop all other activities to make sure jobs get done. The work has to continue, and customer needs must be met. Then we have to start the recruiting process to hire and onboard a new employee. We have to write and place the ads, screen resumes, phone interviews, in-person interviews, reference checking. In fact, hiring is a time-consuming process for an owner. It pulls them away from their day-to-day managerial and entrepreneurial activities. It moves their focus from customers and workflow. According to the SBA, on average, 14% of an owner's time is spent in the hiring process alone. 14%. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, hiring and training a new employee typically averages between 30 and 50% of their salary. That's 4 to 6 months worth of salary just to get people up to speed. And in our world of custom manufacturing, the reality is much more that new employees are going to make more mistakes, which carry an even greater cost for our companies. Sadly, you might even not keep them for very long. 90% of new employees make a decision to stay or leave their new company during the first 6 months. That's why we need to do everything we can to ensure that our best employees stay around longer. We need to understand the issues of employee retention and have an active plan to engage and keep our top performers. So, why do good employees leave? Sure, some good employees leave to relocate to a different area, or they're affected by personal or family issues. Some get better job offers and move on. Some retire. These are issues that are mostly beyond the control of an owner. But the majority of reasons why employees quit their job are under the control of the employer. In fact, any element of your current workplace, your company culture, fellow employees, stifling jobs that offer no avenue of creativity, and a lack of growth opportunity, these are all within the control of an owner. But the number one reason for employees to love it or leave it comes down to the boss. And just like we have good and bad employees, there are good and bad boss traits. So I'm going to paint a picture that's very black and white of good boss, bad boss. But in reality, it is much more shades of gray. Too often we have traits from both lists. What I want to do is understand what some of these traits look like so that we can avoid the ones that drag us down and focus more on the ones that are going to build us up as better bosses. So, the toxic boss and the toxic boss traits, these are the ones that have issues with just about everything. They treat people as objects, not as humans. And really, if we can't connect with our team as human beings, that's something that's seen very poorly by our employees. Toxic boss behavior is very passive-aggressive. That's a focus on the negative, not the positive. Toxic boss activities are people who are not open to the opinions or ideas of others, especially their employees. They don't offer leadership. There's no recognition of the employee's efforts. They're do what I say, not what I do type of people. They don't keep their word to customers or to employees. They don't admit when they're wrong. They make promises that cannot be kept, whether it's to employees or to customers. They criticize others, but they can't take criticism of themselves and their activities. It's their way or the highway. Their way is the right way and the only way to do something. On the other hand, there are the great bosses, and they're the ones that are defined by many different attributes. These are the attributes that we strive to be so that we can be great bosses. The great bosses are leaders, not dictators. They seek input from their team. They care about employee well-being. They give employees ownership in their projects, in their activities, so that they can feed that into their employees and make them better people. They recognize the efforts and their accomplishments of the individuals in their team. They maintain a positive attitude no matter what happens. And I know that a lot of frustrating things happen to us all the time, but maintaining a positive attitude goes a long way. They build up teams. They don't tear them down. The great bosses really are team builders. They know and understand the value of a strong, focused team. They put significant effort into all of these activities: training, coaching, goal setting, collaboration, support, motivation, solutions, and skills, because they know that these are the activities that make their team successful. So let's take a look at our Signworld Shop's team relationships. In December, a survey was sent out to Signworld owners and employees. Over 130 responses were submitted. We asked a lot of questions to discover how we see each other. Good boss, bad boss. Good employees, bad employees. Good environment, bad environment. We're going to spend a bit of time digging into some numbers that may surprise a lot of you. How owners look at their business and employees, and how employees look at their jobs and their owners. The point of all of this is to stimulate your thinking into how to make your business a better, more profitable workplace. Happy, satisfied employees contribute more, stay longer, reducing turnover, and that's a direct benefit for our companies. As we go through the numbers, you're going to notice that there are some consistencies and some major disconnects with how people think. The goal is to open up lines of communication between owners and employees to better facilitate stronger, more cohesive teams. So, survey says, let's look at some numbers. First, who responded? Typically, a 5 to 10% response rate to a survey is considered quite good. From a statistical standpoint, we had a very excellent diverse representation. Jack commented that this was one of the best survey participation from the Signworld group. Over 77 owners and 58 employees from a wide variety of shops and a wide variety of experience responded to this survey. So let's see what you all thought and what takeaways we can learn to make our companies better. The first question was how we rated each other. Employees rated their owners a 9.2. And I'll tell you, you'll see this throughout this, that our employees really think very, very highly of you, the owners of these sign shops. Owners rated their employees only a 7.7. Well, that's a significant difference in satisfaction level. Owners appear to be much more frustrated by their employees than employees are with their owners. So let's look at why owners rate employees so low. I want to start at the bottom. I hope you can all read this chart. But only 14% of owners rated their teams great with no problems. That's only one shop in 7 felt that they had a team that really wasn't problem-laden. So for the employees out there and for the owners out there, this is what bugs you guys the most. Number one, mistakes, lack of skills, doesn't follow systems, lacks motivation, no initiative, no growth potential, no drive, not team players, attendance issues, poor performance issues, poor customer skills, and poor morale. You can see each one what the percentage is that sign shops rated. We asked about the work environment. We asked both owners and employees the same question about their work environment. And we had more comments on this question than any other subject in the survey. Owners themselves see that work environment as something that needs improvement. Many of the comments that were made, both by employers and owners, really focused about the physical space, the layout, the size of the building, the temperature. I guess I asked this in December, so there were some temperature issues, but also about the cleanliness, the organization of the space, and especially many comments about the operations and systems. And we're going to come back to systems in a bit. There was a really significant disconnect. Employees think they understand the company's mission, philosophy, and goals. They rated that at 8.9, that they really believe that they understand it. Owners, not so much. They only see it on a scale of 1 to 10 as a 7, that their employees understand the mission, philosophies, and goals. So to the owners out there, I would suggest that this is an opportunity to make sure that your vision and the value of the company and your pathway forward are powerfully communicated to your team. This comes down to your company culture. There are many ways to create and control your culture. Do you have a mission statement, philosophies, and goals written on your walls where employees encounter them every day? Communication of what you want your mission and philosophies and goals and the reception on the part of the employees is a disconnect. It's a real opportunity to refocus your team. This was the biggest disconnect. Hiring and onboarding well was the question. It's the second highest number of comments, and it's a huge opportunity to be better. More comments were made on the negative side of onboarding by both owners and employees than any other question on this survey. I want to talk about onboarding. Onboarding is considered to be the most critical point that dictates the success of a new employee. Onboarding needs to be in writing, and it needs to be a plan. It should include job duties and responsibilities not only of the new hire, but of everyone in the organization, so that a new hire can understand the interconnections of each individual on the team. It needs to lay out standards and performance guidelines so that a new hire understands what is required of them. Onboarding needs to communicate the culture of your business. We want new hires to integrate into our culture, not to start to hijack it, perhaps into something less productive. Onboarding requires a formal training plan, written. It requires daily, weekly follow-up. One of the things that I preach to all of my coaching clients is the concept of set up for success. And if you'll join me tomorrow afternoon at the 4 o'clock session, we're going to have a little fun and really do a little demonstration of what set up for success might look like in your shop. Oftentimes, I hear clients complain about a recent hire or employees who are just not living up to expectations. Resume looked good, interview was impressive, but too many mistakes, not following through properly. More often than not, the problem isn't the new hire. The problem is the business owner. Why? Because that employee was not set up for success. They were not onboarded properly, and they were not given a roadmap that will give them the successful outcome of what we want them to achieve. Several questions on the survey dealt with employee motivation. What motivated them? What employees thought motivated employees? And what employees told the survey motivated them? Again, some disconnects, but also a lot of commonality. So let's talk about what you're looking at from a scale because it can be confusing here. I'm going to start with the colors on the right-hand side. The light blue color means that it was rated a very top motivator. The lavender color is a very important motivator. The green, like lime green, is a somewhat important, and the orange and the far left, which you can't even see, the blue, dark blue, are rated as not very important at all. So when we look at the work environment, you can see how critically important employees rated this as a top motivator for them. So where they work, where they spend their time on a day-to-day basis is extremely important to them. So I would suggest that getting their input on how to make the work environment better is a very productive outcome to understand what you can do to improve that work environment. Owners, they don't see so much. They think it's somewhat of a motivator, but not the top motivator. Certainly, part of the work environment are your teammates. Again, employees see this as 4 times more of a top motivator than owners see it. The takeaway here is that we should really work hard on creating opportunities to build our team, to do team building activities. When I had my shop, I wanted to be the leader. I wanted to have a team that was productive and performing at top levels. And through the years, we did many team building exercises. We did social things like picnics or Friday pizza parties, which rewarded them for their productivity and accomplishments during the week or the month. But we also did things that were really required more of a team organization, things like paintballing or activities that focused on problem solving or decision making, things that focused on adaptability and planning, and activities that focused on building team trust. If you Google team building, you can get some great ideas for how you can create little activities that last 15 or 20 minutes that can build your team and let people understand how to be trustful of each other. Okay, no surprises here. Money was seen as a top motivator by 42% of all of the respondents. Money matters. And not only money, but benefits. So again, employees see this as more important than the owners do. If you take a look at these on the right-hand side, the light blue is the top motivator. So we all certainly understand that as business owners, there's constant pressure to control costs and be profitable. Without a profitable business, everybody loses. But how we allocate our employee costs, that is a topic for discussion with your team. You might be surprised what employees value more. That it may be that less pay but better benefits offers an employee something that is more beneficial to them and makes them want to stay longer with your company. Being creative is a pretty significant aspect of what we do. Employees think it is one of the most important parts of their jobs. Fully 30% said that it was a top motivator for them. And that's compared to only 10% of the owners recognizing that employees think it's so important. A 2015 study of manufacturing jobs by Texas Christian University drew a direct link between job creativity and employee retention. The takeaway is, encourage that creativity in your team. Reward that. That leads to increased retention. So this really puzzled me. I put these two together because this to me was really a very interesting disconnect, and I don't understand quite how to interpret this information. Less than half the employees said that being mentored was a top or very important motivator. Less than half. And yet, 80% of employees said growth potential was a top or very important factor. In fact, growth potential was even higher than money as a top motivator. Owners don't see these numbers the same way. My question, how are you going to grow without solid mentoring, especially in a small business? How do employees grow? How do you create opportunities for employees to grow? What programs do you have which create a pathway for your employees? Because this is one of the key factors in helping retention. And mentoring is something that really is the pathway for employee growth. Again, I don't understand how to make sense of these numbers, but I certainly see the opportunity that it presents to us. So these questions here are agree, disagree. You agree or disagree that your owners care? Well, the great news is that almost universally, 98% believe their owners care. 95% of employees believe they understand goals, which, by the way, you can contrast that with an earlier slide that only 70% of owners, felt that employees understood the goals. It drops down to 88% that feel they were well managed. That drops to 75% of employees felt they were set up for success. Less than 70% felt that their companies were systems driven. Only 65% felt they were well trained. And wow, a whopping 40% agreed that they had written systems. What a huge opportunity. I want to spend a moment talking about systems because clearly that is one of the big areas that we have an opportunity to make our company better. Systems run businesses. Here's what I know. Systems are a fixed way of doing something to produce a desired effect. They are alive and they're constantly evolving. Systems run businesses. Every big business has documented and trained upon systems. What creates the consistency of a Starbucks in any country in the world? It's systems. If you take a tour of a fast food restaurant, they have picture books and training manuals and standards so that they have systems that employees can follow. And systems must have well-trained employees to operate the system. Because without well-trained employees operating the systems, you're not going to have the execution benefits that are necessary. In our businesses, We have all types of systems. We have a POS, order entry system. When I was running our business, we focused heavily on creating those systems which would make our company more effective. Installation checklists. The worst thing was when an installer had to make a Home Depot run or come back to the shop because they didn't have something correct when they reached the job site. We had a router. We had an entire system of what CNC router bits to use, what the travel speed was, the plunge speed on each type of materials. It was attached to the router so that we could cut down on mistakes and ensure consistency. I am a very strong believer in having a system for sales scripting, that what our salespeople say and what we say ourselves as salespeople to our client should be scripted. We should understand what we're saying and why we're saying it and what goal we're trying to do. But the most important system of all was the system to create a system. Because once we could identify what that need was, we could create a system. And there was a system to create the system. So, what is that system? The first, why are we doing this? What's our goal? We want to establish the goal, and we want to establish what benefits are going to accrue to our company, to our customers, by having a system in a certain area. We want to make sure that we get the right people involved in creating the system. If that system touches an individual, they should be involved in creating the system, because that way we're going to get team buy-in. And if we can get team buy-in, if people have that knowledge that they were part of creating the system, you're vastly more likely to have people follow that system. We want the team to draft the strategies and the tactics of how we're going to create and implement the system. We're going to bring it to the table and we're going to revise it, we're going to finalize it, and we are going to document it because it must be documented. And then once we have the system, we're going to implement and train on it. We want to make sure everyone understands how this system works. And systems are dynamic. We're going to refine the system over and over and over again, each time making it better, learning by using a system how to make it better and more successful for us. I get a little pushback on this one, but I think it's critical. I think that if you have a system, it has to be in people's faces. You cannot have systems that are written and left in a drawer for no one to look at. If it's not in people's faces, it's not going to be a successful system. I gave you the example of our router bits. That was on a laminated piece of paper and it was attached to the controller panel pad of the router so that you couldn't not touch it if you were going to do a routing job. That's what I mean by sticking it in their faces. And you want to hold accountability. People need to be accountable. Everybody, including the owner, needs to be accountable to the system. There are no shortcuts. There are no, well, it's just this one job that we're not going to do according to the system. Systems got to be religious, and you have to hold everyone accountable for those systems. And if a system is not in writing, it does not exist. All kinds of systems can be documented, whether they're a checklist, a procedure manual, a job board, a CRM, a production management software. It doesn't matter. Systems need to be in writing. And clearly, from the survey results, this is a huge opportunity. Only 40% of the employees in our survey believed that they had systems that were in writing. It is an enormous opportunity. I read an interesting article in Forbes last month. It discussed 3 essential employer-employee agreements. These aren't employment contracts. These are behavioral agreements. These agreements, or codes of conduct, help an employee and an employer to work together and to understand and to allow employees to be easier to manage as well as to bring their personal best. So the first of these three agreements is about company culture. And your company culture is the bedrock of your company. It's who you are. It's something that's critically important for you to understand and to control. I spend an awful lot of time with my coaching clients to ensure a positive and constructive culture drives their business forward and that their teams buy in to their company culture. In this agreement, the owners have jobs, and the owner's job for their cultural agreement is to ensure that the employees understand the organization's missions, values, visions, and how they connect to them, how each employee connects to the organization. Again, this is one of those areas, if we go back to the survey, is something that we're not doing as well as we could be. Owner's job is to model them every day, to talk about them, talk about the culture, praise people for honoring the visions and the cultural aspects of the team and the company and their behavior on an everyday basis. It's the owner's job to provide an impact description for employees, how their activities impact the company, their fellow employees, and the customers. And it's the owner's job to pay attention to their people and to give them positive, constructive feedback. The employee's job in this agreement is to understand the company's mission, vision, values, and philosophies, and how to connect with them, how it means something to them. And everyone needs to be a role model. Employees need to be a role model to their teammates as well as to customers, to role model all of our cultural values as part of our company and who we are. It's part to bring ideas for how to improve things. Employees need to have a voice in how we can make things better within our company. And if anything's unclear, it's an employee's obligation in our cultural agreements to ask the owner for help and to give your owner feedback. The second agreement is about optimizing execution and results. We measure results in many ways: productivity, sales, profitability. Ultimately, how we execute determines who we are and how we grow. And in this cultural and this executional agreement, the owner's job is to prioritize and explain to the team why we are doing things, what and when. So why, what, and when. It's really important to know the why if you want to get good communication with your team. It's helping the team understand how to do it. I talk a lot about high value time. As a matter of fact, last year's convention, we had a session where I passed out a form called High Value Time. This is an exercise that I did every single year with my team, and my clients do as well, to identify what are the high value time activities that we as owners do and that each of our individual employees do, so that we can optimize the high value time of everyone in our organization and minimize those things which really bring very low value to our team. It's the owner's job to understand and communicate how we're interdependent and what happens when contingencies come along, when that oddball thing comes along, so that we're all clear on how we're going to handle them. And it's critical that we keep the communication flowing so everyone can do their best work. Employees, they need to think things through to ensure that priorities are clear. They need to understand them and be comfortable with them. They need to be present in their interactions to save everyone time and ensure that things are done right the first time. To understand what the outcome is and how we're going to achieve that outcome. And if we have some things that are hampering our progress toward the outcome, we want to be able to ask owners for help and know that it's going to be received openly. And we want to be able, as employees, to give feedback on prioritizing the executional plan. The third agreement is an agreement to learn and to grow. And this is a commitment for both owners and employees. And as we saw in our survey, this is really one of the critical areas that we have an opportunity to be better. Owner's job is to map out individual development plans so that each individual can see how they'll grow at your company, how they'll build their skill sets and grow both in skills, personally, professionally, and monetarily. It's to create a growth and learning plan for yourself, you as an owner as well. How will you be more knowledgeable as you continue to grow? I know that one of the things that I did early on was take a Photoshop class so that I could understand graphic design better. An owner's job is to involve the team in identifying and optimizing process changes that will make and improve our effectiveness. We want to have systems and have the team involved in this process. And we want to improve the employee's skill set through classes, trade shows, training, through vendors, through online opportunities. Employees need to understand what their development, their personal development and growth opportunities are, and to participate in creating that growth plan. The opportunity they need to take advantage of are to attend classes, trade shows, and training to improve their knowledge and skills, to use the internet to draw on the knowledge of their vendors to become more knowledgeable and skillful, and to review and help build the company's training manuals and documentations for themselves as well as for future employees that come on board, and to work with owners to create operational systems so that, again, with only 40% written systems, we want to make sure that the employees participate in doing that so that everyone can have those growth opportunities. So I've been speaking now for almost 50 minutes, and I want to talk a little bit about what's the takeaway from today's session. Well, turnover is expensive and it's disruptive. I think we can all understand that. But it's also sometimes necessary. So for those of you that have those troublesome employees, bite the bullet. Fire the poor performing employees and move on. Retention of the good ones equals more profit. And we should do everything we can to make our work environments someplace where we can focus on retention and offer those opportunities to our good employees. Onboarding is a critical link and one that we're not doing nearly as well as we could. We need to review what our onboarding systems are and to take time to sit down and to work out how we want to onboard new employees in production, in sales, in design, in administration, because each onboarding has a different aspect to it. That we have great opportunities to be better mentors to our people, which will really help them grow and fill one of their needs to be a person who has growth opportunities. We need stronger written systems. Clearly, only 40% agree that we have strong written systems in our companies. This is a great opportunity to get your team working on writing these systems. And I got to tell you, every one of you are viewed as great bosses. And it's, continue to be those great bosses. Continue to be open, continue to involve your team. When we go and hire, we feel sometimes we're at a disadvantage against big businesses. But I have to share with you, I don't think that's true. I think that there are some great differentiators on why someone would want to work for our small businesses. And these are powerful reasons that you can use when you're going through the recruiting and hiring process. We offer employees the opportunity to work closely with the owners, to expose them to the entire business, to give them a view of a business that they won't get working for a big company. Employees in our companies, their ideas actually matter. Let's listen to them, because it's amazing how many really good ideas are grassroots and come from your people. And that's a differentiator where we actually want to hear ideas and we can actually make a difference. Your employees can be an influencer of growth. And a Starbucks employee isn't going to have much of an influence on the growth of a store. But in our companies, people can be influencers of growth. And that's a great reward for them because it's personal growth and development. These are differentiators of why working in our small sign shops really have an attractive base for a lot of the right people. I want to leave today with a quote from Simon Sinek, who is one of the business gurus that I follow. You don't hire for skills, you hire for attitude. You can always teach skills. And that's what we want. We want people who have the right attitude, who are going to be a great attitude fit for who we are as companies. Because when we put on our HR hats, we want to build, ultimately, great teams. Thank you so much. We have a few minutes for questions.